It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
Okie dokie, welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcast podcasted in theory this year every fortnight from a kitchen bench in Kingston, Auckland, New Zealand, with your host, myself, Lewis, and a different guest each week, long-form conversational style. I've fallen a little bit behind. 'Tis often said in these intros. It was said last year as well, but I think I'm going to get another conversation in over Easter, being this weekend, and I just see we're up to week 13 of the year, so if I'm going for about 26 episodes this year, then I'll only be one behind, or only have one to go to be on time. That's glass half full, isn't it? It's currently Thursday morning. I had this week's guest over on Tuesday night. I got to say, the night podcasts have got a different energy to them, man. Quite often people find times in their days in the morning. It might surprise some of you that often will have a podcast recording session, 9 or 10 a.m. and be out the door and back to our lives before 12. But Mr. Benj, who was the last episode, Dave Benj, we did that one in the evening and had a few beers, and did the same with Sam. Not as many beers, not beers that I felt the beers like I felt the beers with the one with Dave. Good feedback on that episode. Thank you very much. And the beers turned up from Hallertau. Thank you, Dave. He calls it the podcast subscription. A big box of number twos, snicker. And Sam and I indulged in some number twos, some number two talk on the podcast. A little bit of existential dread. That'd be a great Woody Allen reggae album title. So, some existential dread with this episode, I must confess. To do with the evenings, I think I'd had a really long day. I talk about in the podcast. I'd had 6 hours, 3 different streams of a class, basically, okaying and giving advice on student documentaries that are yet to be made. I sort of realised that's essentially a 5-minute production role for about 90 students, or probably not that many, 70 over the day. Very draining. And then a quick 3-page Google on Sam, as I do, on top of my already vast knowledge of my guests, and we jumped in there. And I think I was a little bit, just let the guest breathe a little bit more. I might have been a little bit nippy, not nippy in the combative sense, but in the, hey man, let Sam finish that idea. But he kept up. Probably shouldn't have even pointed it out. So, it's going to be great. You're going to love it. Sam is, I tended to guffaw a lot. Lots of wheezy laughs. I don't know where that came from. Fatigue. I don't have the wheezy laugh in the morning ones. Sam, what a talent. I know him from high school. Really, in the scheme of things, we've only sort of hung out, been around each other a few times since then. It's a long time ago. But not only singer and player with the Phoenix Foundation, but if you're not aware already, he is working with some, and endorsed essentially, and respected by some, I guess, New Zealand music royalty is the only way to put it. He's worked with David Kilgour, toured with Finn Brothers, and produced Dave Dobbin, which I think's pretty amazing, if you ask me. And a lovely fella to boot. I think I'll leave you with that today. The usuals, like the show, Verbal Highs podcast on Facebook, Verbal Highs on Twitter. You can find it on iTunes if you leave a star rating and subscribe, and also comment. That'd be lubbly jubbly. Okay, enjoy this, and we'll hopefully have another episode out soon.
This is Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs.
Oh, thanks for coming, man. I mean,
Is this Mark Maron styles that you just press record?
Yeah, you saw me whip in there and just I like the fact that you've referenced Maron because you could say it's a rip-off. I call it a homage. Is that the right word?
I don't think it's a rip-off. I think he kind of mastered a format that everyone else wants to master. Because,
Adam Buxton, that's a British guy I follow who's very much shamelessly says he's done the same.
Right, yeah. I mean, I just find like half the podcasts I sort of start listening to, there's a certain Mark Maron-y kind of thing to them. But that's because it's good, and, like, he's just one guy. He can't interview every single person in the world. And
I'm sorry that you can't, but you're here. I'm the.
Well, if it was a choice between you and Mark Maron, I'd probably choose Mark Maron. Let's be honest.
Do you want to?
But he's great. He's amazing.
Do you want a glass for that, or you just?
I don't. I'm just going to crack it. You need to open your one.
You're in the audio game, so if you just put that on there, I'll get rid of this coffee.
So make a nice slurpy sound. You can edit out me talking about Mark Maron if it's too.
I like it.
Shitty. If I sound like a
no, because I've actually got to the point where I'm like, I should stop talking about Mark Maron on this podcast because it's my podcast.
Yeah.
But the story I have told is that an ex. It's always lovely to get on with exes. An ex said, not only you should be podcasting, but I think, this is someone who I lived with for a few years, said, you're quite similar to Maron in a lot of ways, and also, you should be doing the podcast. So she was actually the final, it had already been kind of rolling around in my head, man, I can do this. And it got to a point where I actually, it's probably still, I forsake listening to music for podcasts now. I've become like when I was a kid, and I used to go, why do old dudes just listen to someone talking all day?
Talkback radio and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like listening to talkback radio, but people aren't being horrible the whole time.
And they're talking about good films and fun times. And
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I really have actually cut back my music listening in the last 5 years since I've had kids.
It's happening to all of us, man.
Yeah. I mean, I work on music between, like, a slow week would be 40, 50 hours, and a big week, which is most of the time at the moment, it's like sort of 60, 70, up to like 80 hours a week, just sitting there making music the whole time.
Wow.
So when I finish work and I'm going to go for a walk to ease my aging back, I kind of don't feel like listening to music. I feel like listening to someone talking about something that's, because when I listen to music, I just think, like I was listening to Marlon Williams' album last night.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, he sounds great. Oh, his voice is so good. Oh, there's so much vibe in his voice. Oh, I need to get that vibe in my voice for our next record. Oh, I got to listen to my demos now and just see. And then I'm like listening, chopping between and going, oh yeah, no, like he's just really got this emotion going on that I just haven't got that going on. And you're like, oh God, I've got to think about this. So music immediately puts me into.
I see what you mean. You've got this weird
mode.
crossover of like work. This thing that you love is kind of work now as well. Because the other day when you were like, "Oh, I've got it," I see you referenced something about work or a day job or whatever. I thought surely Sam isn't doing something outside of music. I thought you'd got some sort of day job aside from music. But the job of music is music. The job is music rather.
It's music, but it's very day jobby for sure, which is cartoon music.
Well, that could be worse. It's not Barefoot Bandits, is it?
I don't even know what that is. No,
okay.
It's an American show called Skylanders Academy.
Cool.
So it's a pretty cool show because it's like people like Susan Sarandon, Norm Macdonald. Do you know Norm Macdonald?
I do.
Yeah, he's got a good podcast. Actually, good sort of video podcast thing.
Have you ever listened to this podcast?
I have listened to this podcast. Am I too?
Oh, just a little bit poppy there. You're in the audio game. I just thought I'd pull that down a bit.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I have listened to your podcast. I enjoy it.
Thank you. This is about me for the next hour and 20 minutes.
Okay, great.
I was a little nervous before you. Well, not nervous. I don't really get nervous. It's incorrect. I was like, I'm not enough of an encyclopedia of kind of what you've been up to for the last 20 or so years. But then I watched Anika Moa talk to you just before you came over, and I thought I'll be fine because she was excellent and irreverent. And she said, "Why are you looking at your phone?" And you had the best answer ever for that in an interview ever, where there was no comeback.
What did I say?
I'm checking to see whether my wife's in labour.
That's true. That's right. That's what happened that day. Yeah, I had to come up here for to do like a day of press, and it was really stressful because it was really close to when she, we knew she was going to give birth any day, and I had to leave town, and so I wasn't there for those interviews. But the Anika Moa one was probably still fine because she just makes it fine. I mean, she could interview like someone who's just the most boring person in the world, and it would still be good to listen to and watch. I mean, she interviewed Ed Sheeran the other day, And it was great. It was such a great interview. And she found all the positive...
Where did that air or show or...
Well, she's like TV1
7
now.
Sharp, must have been 7 Sharp or something.
Yeah, she's like doing a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think it's 7 Sharp, yeah.
Isn't it weird how...
Which makes sense. I mean, she's just got that vibe.
Well, isn't it weird how, it's weird. It feels to me like our kind of mainstream, meaning free-to-air TV, like media climate, has quickly followed the way our political leadership has gone. Like, we've gone from hosking... and admittedly, the TV3 thing had been going longer, but we've gone to this kind of student radio-esque kind of vibe on both shows, which I never thought I'd see on
Is it that
NZ telly, you know?
Is it that it's gone student radio, or is it just that we have reached an age where people that we think of as being student radio are actually just middle-aged
Yeah, but
people with heaps of experience?
Yeah, but I've noticed that, like, even... you know, the darling of the nation, of the media, as they say, the woman that's on with Jeremy Wells. I so know her
Berry?
name. It's been a long day. Yeah, Hilary Berry.
Is it Hilary Berry?
Hilary Berry's gone all trippy on that show now as well, and she's sort of like
She's always had a bit
gone
of
weirder really quickly. I know, but it's really great
She's
to
always
see.
had an edge. I hope it is Hilary Berry. When I'm
It
just
is.
saying some random name.
It is Hilary Berry. I should say straight in there. People with things to do. 6 hours today, okaying student proposals for their 3-minute audio documentary. A lot of them had never made a documentary or worked in Pro Tools, but it's a long 2-hour sessions, sitting with each person, talking about how they can steer their idea and so on. So basically producing 90 people in 5-minute blocks. That's what I did today.
Yeah.
I'm with Sam Scott. Here's an incredibly reductive overview of what Sam has been up to since probably late teens. A musician and composer who's a founding member of the Phoenix Foundation and also side project or other project Bunnies on Ponies. Also works as a composer for screen projects, including said cartoon show, and writes and records feature material for RNZ. And also has produced an album for a guy you might have heard of called Dave Dobbin.
That's most of it.
So why'd you move to Auckland?
Well, 100% for my wife, really. So she's studying speech therapy, and our lives for the last 10 years have been very much focused around me trying to be a famous rock star.
Just 10?
Well, that's like, we've been together, we've been married for 10 and a bit years.
Oh, okay,
so,
yeah.
I'm thinking of like the fully committed period. She's kind of had to compromise a lot of stuff for me. So it's, it was time for me to compromise for her, but it's not that much of a compromise because most of the music industry's up here, and I'm sure it'll work out in some way or another. So.
And Pro Tools has a session mode now, so...
We haven't quite worked out how to do that. We keep talking about it.
Yeah.
But I do, because I work with Conrad Weddy and Luke Buddha on all the soundtrack stuff. So we work together, all day, pretty much 7 days a week, in different studios. And so we're sending each other Pro Tools files all the time. And we do all of our... we're just constantly working in Google Docs. So we'll see what the other person's typing into Google Docs. I've done this cue, blah, blah, blah. And then we've got Messenger going the whole time, and then we have phone calls a couple of times a day. And it's quite a different way to make music, but we're still actually in each other's faces the whole time, even though we're in completely different cities.
But not working out the session thing, you're still kind of Dropboxing each other the actual files rather than...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I like to just work by myself anyway.
Yeah.
So I like to work on something for a period of time so that I can be really focused, and then give it to someone else and let them kind of take over. And the kind of cloud session thing, I don't know, it doesn't really seem that different, other than it just becomes a sort of metadata confusion.
Yeah.
I just want to know what version things are.
That sounds to me like that quest for ever faster internet, and people who get really into it coming over and going, you could da-da-da-da. I'm like, things are kind of fast enough for me at the moment,
Yeah.
You're in contact.
They're not fast enough for me because I'm, a couple of times a week uploading STEM files to a mix studio in France, and my ADSL is just actually atrocious. And I thought it might have been, because I've just moved to Grey Lynn, and there's a building near us that looks like a spy base, and I thought maybe that's like some kind of spy base and they're like destroying the internet, but then I worked out it's the 111 call centre.
So yeah, Auckland's, I mean, later in life, as you say, wife and kid, getting on with stuff, so it's sort of probably different, a lot different to moving in your 20s or whatever. But has it been kind of a culture shock in a way? It's quite a different city to live in, right? Or as I say, you're just so busy that you're not really...
I'm so busy I haven't really noticed. But I don't think Auckland would be a culture shock at this point.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, there's just like details that like...
Not culture shock, that's wrong. That sounds like I'm asking, you move to like, somewhere in, a third world nation or something. But it's a different city to live in than Wellington.
It's definitely different. It is different imported goods. That's what I've noticed.
Really?
There'll be like brands of like pasta that you'll see in various places that I'll shop in Wellington, and then in Auckland there'll be a different brand of pasta that's at the same price point but it's got a different label. And it's like, oh, okay, so there's someone importing like passata from this region of Italy into Auckland, and there's someone importing passata from this region of Italy into Wellington, but they're different and they taste different.
Internet speeds and pasta importation
I get
nuances.
pretty obsessed with trying to, because like my kids just want to eat like tomato pasta all the time, basically.
Like good basic Italian sauce, homemade. Have you got time? Yeah,
always.
Do you think there's any difference? I've had this dilemma. Google won't turn this up for me.
I will definitely have an answer.
Do you think there is any difference in, let's say, the home brand pasta to the high-end pasta on the supermarket shelves? I'm talking dried here.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. 100%.
So Barilla is the way to go compared to home
Barilla's
brand.
really good, but they had this... The guy who owns Barilla is a crazy homophobe or something.
That's right.
There's the one that I buy is Mollicina, and actually I found a place selling it. I think you can get it at Farrow's. So Mollicina is pretty much the same price as Barilla, but they're both like $2 a packet as opposed to maybe $1.50 a packet. So it's not like you're splashing out.
But this is where it confuses me on the packet, because they both list the same ingredients, which is something like semolina flour and water.
But the cheaper ones are Australian made and grown, and it's a very different
quality of flour.
Yeah. It's like the bread flour in New Zealand is very different to the bread flour you get in Europe. I reckon it has a very different kind of feel.
International fans of the Phoenix Foundation, boy, are you in for a ride over the next hour and 5 minutes. Childhood, bro.
I'm obsessed with this stuff. Don't bring this shit up.
Oh, look,
I
could easily do. Maybe there's a podcast, and I'm sure it's been done, and talking to people known for other things just about their love of food. I was actually going to talk about it later on, because I've done the same, man. I mean, I've always been into food, but obviously now I'm not in scummy flats in early 20s and stuff. I've got really into preparing and learning about food.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's, bad data sample, because I know a lot of kind of musicians and artists and this, that, and the other thing. But it seems to me to be a real thing that kind of quote-unquote creative people seem to get really into as a side thing, is the art of perfect cooking.
I think it's people at the moment.
Yeah, that's what I mean. My sample was kind of crappy, because it's like...
The sample is not... but that's not wrong, though, but it's just that it's actually spread out into wider society. I just think people are so obsessed with food right now, because it's like... I don't know. It's an interesting subject that maybe hasn't been kind of done to death, and it's something that doesn't make you feel guilty. It's consumerism that doesn't make you feel as guilty as all the machines and things around you. So, and when you cook, you can't really be on your phone, and I think people are like really like subconsciously quite desperate to find things that can absorb them that aren't related to their phones.
I reckon also it's like often a reaction to like, it's like food to me, like the way that's changing is like a metaphor for coming out of like some period like the 80s, or just like the whole like consumer goods things. Well, like you say, yeah, it's consumer goods and stuff, but the fact that a lot of us are getting into like cooking from scratch, that's like the sort of anti-McDonald'sism of the world kind of vibe, isn't it? Coming back to what our grandparents did and going, I'll actually grow that and I'll find that in that shop. I go to 3 or 4 shops for one meal, man. I don't know if
your grandparents would have been making like beef pho from scratch though.
My grandmother was like boiling mince until it was until it was whatever it was, and doing the same with potatoes and peas.
I tell you what, my grandmother...
But damn, she could make that go a long way.
Yeah. I mean, that's a skill unto itself, and that, there's definitely, that's got to be respected. It's just getting the cheap stuff and feeding a huge family. Definitely respect that. But I also respect obsessively making some kind of Asian stock for 3 days, and
I do that. I do that for my ramen.
I know. I mean, I've followed...
Is that what the reference was?
Yeah, no, this is a Lewis reference. You said the show's going to be all about you, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
But my grandmother, who lived in Auckland, she lived in like a state house in One Tree Hill, which is no longer feels like a state housey suburb. It's quite fancy now, as everywhere seems to be. But she had this amazing citrus orchard in her garden, and she would make these beautiful marmalades every year when the grapefruits came in and stuff, and they were like incredible. Like, when you have marmalade is it's chewy and it's bitter and everything else. But then it's one of those things where when it's just really made with the most beautiful grapefruits and it's made by someone who's got the perfect touch. Yeah. It's just the thing where the flavour is more intense than... It's like a really good cocktail where the flavour is like spiritually intense.
Fermenting the fruit right or whatever the process is. Don't get me started on the qualities of different sugars. So your childhood, grew up in Newtown?
Sort of. No, I mean, I was born in Newtown.
Yeah.
But
a lot of us were in Wellington, bro.
Yeah. In the old St. Helens Hospital.
Yeah.
But I say that because I've lived around that hospital so much of my life, like within sight of it, which is now a block of flats. So that's like really close to my dad's house, where we moved when I was 9 or something. So I lived in Newtown, on and off from the age of 9, but started out in Wadestown. But definitely just a Wellington guy, yeah.
Just you or sisters and brothers?
Oh, heaps. Like, it's so complicated.
Heaps, bro.
And like heaps of divorces and all sorts of whack shit. Yeah.
And I was thinking today, like, your dad has made a career out of something that, especially in his generation, the wrong teacher could have laughed someone out of the classroom saying they wanted to be, being Tom Scott, the political cartoonist, and an esoteric career, definitely. How is it growing up with a cartoonist for a dad?
Well, I tell you one thing that was pretty good about it is that he could do it in like an hour.
Yeah.
So.
He just had to get out one. I mean, I shouldn't say just, but he did one killer idea for each day.
Yeah, he can draw them really fast. He just has to think of the idea. So if he's not, back in the day, if he wasn't stressing out about an idea, if he already had kind of a few ideas lined up for the week, he did have a bit of time. He was one of those dads who could drop you off at school and pick you up at 3, and
Was there other days where it was like, I got nothing?
Oh, yeah. And then he's like one of those people, if he's writing a play or something like that and he's in the zone, he's completely impenetrable in a way.
Yeah.
You sort of start talking to him about something that's going on in your life and you just see his eyes glaze over because he's just unable to think about anything other than his work. But, I suspect I'm probably a little bit like that too.
Well, they say the apple, doesn't fall far from the tree. So did you, like, by proxy, have sort of quite a full political knowledge for a kid?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep, I'd say so. Yeah, it was a pretty constant discussion. But also from my mum. My mum's still very liberal, passionately, quite extremely kind of left wing. So
I like the way you said still, because my mother shocked me the last election and voted National because she said, where you stand is where you sit, and she was worried about something to do with her employment, which I totally understood, but it still was like, I was like, wow, it's true what they say. People do get more conservative often as they get older, right?
Yeah, for sure. My mum's got more liberal, I reckon.
Yeah. What do you think that is?
I think she just hasn't given up on thinking about it. I think it's one of those things when it just becomes a bit too stressful to think about all of those things, and then you just go with the party that seems the easiest. And I mean, I honestly think that National with John Key, I don't like John Key, I don't like their policies, but I could I can see how they just had a certain stability to them through all of the. That was a pretty tough time. His reign. His reign as the Lord of the Manor. The Christchurch earthquakes and global financial crises and things like that. And New Zealand kind of came through all that stuff pretty good.
Yeah.
So even though inequality
That's
got
right.
way
It was
worse,
sort of successful mediocrity with a whole bunch of other stuff falling behind the scenes.
like basically for poor people, life got much worse.
Yeah.
But that sort of happened quietly below the surface, where most people who are just getting on and getting on with their lives, and the middle class and the upper classes, things kind of got a little bit better and could have gotten worse. And so, that when you say it like that, that's horrible. It's like we shouldn't be so selfish, but I can sort of understand how that worked, how that was a sellable kind of thing.
There's so much to it, man. There's generations of voters. Like, I thought about how I've been teaching since 2011, and again, very unscientific study here, but I've noticed students starting to feel more engaged overall again. The first few years I had through didn't seem particularly interested in a lot of sort of issues. That's probably a little unfair. The newer ones seem to be becoming more engaged, like the sort of students of old. It's an interesting thing to watch because who is voting and their headspace and stuff obviously affects that, right? Because they're the ones who go into the ballot box.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think if young people in general voted in larger numbers, we'd have very different politics the world over.
Maybe they should give away a prize or something. Do like a sweepstakes, one in every 500 in the box wins an iPad or something.
Yeah.
Wellington High School. I reckon I was probably 7th form or the last year of high school, and you would have been about 4th form. I tried to map it out today, so I finished in 93.
Yeah, I think I finished in 96, I think.
And the band formed around then, and again, just reflecting on it today, I'm like, wow, you guys have been a band for longer than 20 years, and time flies, right?
Yeah, we think this year is like the 20th anniversary of being like the Phoenix Foundation.
Right. So were you like a RockQuest band originally?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were making music before we kind of knew what RockQuest was, me and Luke and Con.
Yeah.
And then they decided they wanted to put a heavy metal band together for RockQuest.
Did it have a great RockQuest name, the band?
I think we were called Comos. We were called something. I think we were called Clinic at first, and then we were called Comos when we competed. And
was Clinic with a K?
No, Comos was.
Okay.
But Comos is like... I think I came up with the name Comos, and Comos was the Dionysian festival of sort of sex and drugs and booze in ancient Greece.
You don't strike me as a metal guy.
I'm not a metal guy, not at all. But, when you've got a few mates who are like the really into it musicians and they're doing metal, you just do that because...
You were playing guitar and...
I was singing in the metal band.
What style? Like Iron Maiden falsetto or like kind of Meshuggah grunt or...
No, nothing. More like helmety kind of shouty...
Sort of punk-esque. That sounds more like it. Yeah.
It was quite... I mean, because I was into punk for sure. Like at that time I was, into the Ramones and...
And good time for Helmet as well. I think I was big into Helmet around that time as well.
Yeah, they were good. I mean, they were good. Like, I just sort of had to latch onto the things which I found good. I mean, I liked Sepultura. I couldn't really do the Sepultura singing. I tried, but I lost my voice every time I did that.
Helmet came back in the last few years, and I was like tempted, but I wasn't quite that into them to go in 20 years later. But I would have loved to have seen if they still kind of had it,
Oh, I'm sure that would be awesome, but I wasn't gonna. I couldn't really go there again.
What are your memories? I mean, I with guests I like to sort of chat about high school and stuff. Because some of it doesn't actually seem like that long ago to me, man. Others does. And it depends on different people I talk to and how their memory works. Some people are like, blah, blah, blah.
I feel like it feels like a long time ago to me. But I feel like everything that happened before I met Jessica is like a completely different existence.
Really?
Like, there's something about when you kind of, like, actually choose to kind of, like, settle down or give up or something. Give up on kind of being like a a cool guy.
A young man about town.
Yeah.
What are your memories of Wellington High, man? What? Yeah, did you like it? You like good school?
Yeah, no, I mean, I loved being there. I didn't really work. I didn't really do any schoolwork at all. I was a terrible student. And it was really
weird. So did
weird.
you pass any exams or anything? I'd imagine you would have been smart enough to pass stuff without doing much work.
I passed everything. Yeah. It was. I mean, I passed, but like, I was constant disappointment to my parents because they'd just be like, "Why are you just doing why are you just passing?"
Yeah, because that's the kind of school it is, man. I'm learning how to be a human being.
Well, then I went to university and did pretty good.
Yeah. What'd you do? What'd you study?
Mostly art history and religious studies and English and
the classic
sort of
BA.
Yeah. And I dropped out with like one term to go.
What was in the music department when you were there? When I started in 1989, there's obviously what was in the music department, Fritz. I'll tell you about a story about that in a second.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what this was till recently. A buddy posted this thing on Facebook about how tomorrow's schools like screwed the budget for high schools. I just thought Wellington High School was really slack, but we had an electric guitar with 3 strings and 2 pieces of a drum kit as the school music equipment when I started, with things looking better. Because when I went back...
No, the music department was pretty good.
Right.
But Fritz was... various people have got, different memories of Fritz and stuff, but he was a passionate dude for providing stuff for bands. He was into bands,
I think Fritz was one of those people who... I think he had his favourites.
He definitely had
because
his favourites.
he and I there was always something that just never clicked, man, even though, it was like kid and teacher. But the funny story is David Lawrence and I, who reconnected after about 20 years, went to the school reunion, and pretty much we only saw 3 people we knew, and one of them was Fritz, who David and I spent a bit of time with our high school band, and he just blanked us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Glimmer of recognition and then no hello. And the weird thing is we were there right when he started as a teacher, so I'd imagine that, it was odd. Maybe maybe his eyes are going, I don't know, but it was odd.
Yeah, that's a shame. I found him pretty intense at some points, but
it sounds like he did good things to push you guys. Yeah.
I think he could just see that the 3 of us, especially more than any other kids in the class, were just going to be musicians. Like, I think you can tell that pretty early on. I can definitely tell that with young bands. Like, there'll just be a band that will appear and it will be 19-year-olds, and I'll just be able to go, oh yeah, those musicians will be around. And
that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. That's they've
got a thing where they might be terrible, but you can just tell that they've got the focus or something. And you'll keep seeing them in different bands and different things at music festivals from then on. And so he probably saw that. He just saw, oh yeah, musician brains. I better, because he would let us practice like every day. We had the
wouldn't say, why aren't you in English or whatever? Why aren't you in period 3?
Oh no, I mean, we didn't necessarily wag to practice, or we probably did occasionally. But we'd go to the music rooms after school. 3 days a week. Or more, and just play. We just had a place we could go and just rock out all the time. And so, like that. I mean, I don't know if we didn't have that, might not have stuck.
Well, I think that I'm going to call this podcast "The Redemption of Fritz Wollner."
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I don't know. I don't want to belittle your negative experiences.
Whatever you don't want to do on that side of the table, I don't want to do on this side of the table.
Should we move on from Fritz then?
Would you?
But you know that he played on a Phoenix Foundation album.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
How's your beer going?
Just about done. Yeah.
Would you like a delicious Hallertau number 2?
Oh yeah, I do need a number 2. That's the one thing, because I like the Hallertau branding, the numbers and stuff, but the one thing about it is that the number 1 and 2 are probably, their best-selling beers, and it is like doing a wee-wee or a poo.
Well, it is, that's right, and I always get sent a big box of number 2s and go, so 98, refreshing.
Oh, yeah.
98, the band becomes Phoenix Foundation. Talk about doing such a thing in Wellington at the time, because... a mutual friend of ours, Craig Terrace, once said to me, Lewis, owning a guitar in 1998 in Wellington was like having AIDS.
Well, that does sound like a thing he might have said back in the day. Yeah, no, it was. I worked at. I'll tell you what my experience.
What
of
I'm
that
meaning
was.
here, folks,
No.
is for people overseas or wherever, is that Wellington's quite a small city, and it became quite dance and beats and DJ heavy around that time.
It did. It became very. There was very focused on that, but it became focused on that sort of in terms of like the. There was a perception that it was like that. That wasn't actually the reality.
Yeah.
There was actually heaps of guitar bands. People went to see them. You know, it was actually quite a strong band scene, but there was definitely like a there was a DJ's rule the school vibe. But I mean, honestly, for me, I was like 18 when I started working at Fidel's Cafe. The night that I started, because I went and I knew I wanted to work there because it was cool. Other musicians worked there, so I went and said, "Look, I'd really like a job." And
That's right.
And Roger went, "Oh yeah, do you want to start in 2 days?" And I was like, "Sure." And he was like, "Okay, cool. You got to come in on Saturday. You're going to start about 6 o'clock. You might have to work until maybe 6 in the morning because it's our staff party." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I did the bar for their staff party, which was actually just like an everyone in Wellington party. It was just like fast food. So I was just serving drinks to everyone in that scene all night long,
Yeah.
and it was a great introduction into that kind of world. And so I show up and I'm opening beers and whatnot, and this band start, and they're amazing.
I know.
You know who it was?
Yeah. To begin with T, yeah.
It was Trinity Roots.
Yeah.
Although it maybe just called Trinity at that point.
I think that night's been name-checked in articles and so on since, yeah.
Yeah, well, because then this guy got up and started emceeing, and they did kind of like a version of his yet unreleased song, Subcranium Feeling, or something like that. So it was like King Capisi and Trinity Roots.
Yeah.
And I think the dude doing dishes...
was Polder from Shapeshifter?
It was Polder from Shapeshifter.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Halcyon Days.
Yeah, so it was like and Dallas worked there, and Moo was quite often would just DJ on a Friday night. People would be having dinner and Moo would be DJing. I mean, imagine that now in Wellington. It would just, people would just be blown away. He's such a hero.
Yeah.
So
go on.
I mean, so for me, that I was pretty excited about that scene because I loved reggae, I loved hip hop, I loved soul music, all that stuff. But I also at that time was like massively into like Belle Sebastian and lots of indie stuff, Pavement, whatever it is, the Velvet Underground, all that sort of shit. So I'd go in and I'd be working at Fidel's and I'd put on the Lyricist Lounge album or whatever, and I've been listening to hip hop since I was a kid because my older brothers were into it. So I was just totally comfortable with that whole world. But then I'd put on the new Sparklehorse CD and just get so much shit from
Oh, really?
So much
So
shit.
you're saying the open-mindedness didn't go both ways?
It did not go both ways at all.
Yeah.
But it didn't. But I tell you what, it didn't go both ways from chefs and wankers who kind of thought they were cool. But actually, most of the DJs were into it.
Yeah, it's again, a thing that's come up on the podcast a lot, and it's not an unknown kind of trope about Wellington either. Is and I guess any small city, but that's the one I know of coming up, and is you can't beat that cross pollination by just being forced to trip over each other.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Because I noticed, even when I'd come up here around that time, and also living in Melbourne, I lived in Melbourne 6 or 7 years, and you can very much exist in a musical pocket there. And that's the only frickin' pocket you exist in, man. You've actually got to... You can go to other pockets because you've got all that different stuff you're into, but you've actually got to really try.
No, but if there's a music venue in Melbourne that's got a cool thing going on, they'll have one type of music that they play.
So one cool thing, a job I got there, it was weird. I went from doing the show on Active to clearing glasses at a bar. Good old story of the Australian economy. I was earning far more money as a glassy than I did doing all the stuff I was doing on it.
Sure.
But anyway, it was at the Prince Band Room. I don't know if you know that venue. It's down in St Kilda. And it's sort of analogous to, I don't know, let's go for a James Cabaret, where you get bands or artists or DJs or whatever that aren't quite big enough to be at an arena, but they're not small enough to do a bodega or whatever.
That's kind of the best. Those are the best bands,
Right.
and that's the best size venue.
Right,
like a power station.
Right, so I thought I said power station. So so while I'm clearing glasses, I see all these. This is one example of a night like on a Thursday, because I'm like, oh, that's Clint and so on from Weta here, and oh, that's Kippy from Shehard, and oh, that's another guy I don't actually know from. Well, I know his face, but I don't know who he is, and I'm like, this band is going to be like pretty important tonight. Who are they? It was Queens of the frickin' Stone Age before they'd got so big to play bigger venues.
Yeah.
And a band like, I mean, Coldplay, Schmoldplay, but I saw them at a James Cabaret sized venue because they hadn't blown up enough yet. So that was a great gig, clearing glass and ashtray wise, for seeing a lot of really interesting bands, like 4 or 5 nights a week.
That was also the time when in New Zealand those bands probably weren't coming here. Now I think everyone comes here, but definitely there was a time.
City of 4 million and a venue the size of the band room, which was probably 1,000 at its absolute. Not even that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So the band takes on its name in, like, I think 98 or
98, 99, something like that. I'm not actually sure, but yeah. We've gone through some changes over that time. I mean, we didn't really know what we were doing. Like, I think I was a terrible songwriter until I was about 23.
Yeah.
And I'm quite amazed by, like, bands that I look back on now and go, well, they were, like, doing all their best stuff between, like, the age of 18 and 22.
Yeah, but you can't look at different groups and people's processes
people,
like that.
Yeah, people have different times. I mean, Leonard Cohen put out his first album when he was, like, 35 or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe he was younger. He was probably younger. You're probably going to get an email saying, that Sam Scott doesn't know a fucking thing.
I'd love to get an email about anything with this show.
Oh, mate, this one's going to go viral.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you this is going to be the Louis C.K. one. I'm going to start crying. I'm not going to jerk off in front of you. I'm going to
that's good. That's good. I've got a fridge full of beer, though, if you wanted to go that way.
We'll see. The night is young.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. You made me lose my train of thought. Yeah, you say you've changed a lot, and I was thinking, like, genre is such a restrictive thing, and obviously, genre exists. This is the way I see it. It exists for a good reason, that we can give something a name when we talk to someone else or write about something to someone else, so we can go, I know it is that, and, da-da-da-da-da. And so, you guys must struggle with pegging a genre, and not only with the 20 years of change, but with what it actually is on each album as well, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, our first album, which is, 2002 that came out or something? And that came out on a what was mostly a dance label,
Yeah, Capital.
So, I mean, that was indicative of the times as well, that, the labels around were kind of, putting out 12 inches and things like that. I wish they'd put our album out on vinyl, though. That would have been really good if we had some vinyl floating around of that now.
It's never too late.
Yeah, but, that'd be worth so much money.
Yeah. And you'd have a garage full of them. Just kidding.
No, that record sounded so great. It was such a surprise because we had no idea what we were doing, but we put a lot of work into it, and we'd book out the Surgery, Lee Preble's studio. I think it was Lee and Warren from Trinity Roots had kind of set it up. The gear was pretty crap, but they knew what they were doing. The room was nice, and we'd book it out for 2 days, and we'd go in there and we'd work for 2 days. We wouldn't leave the studio. We'd just work 24 hours a day and just keep going, because it was like, oh yeah, we can afford 2 days at probably $200 a day or something ridiculously cheap, and then but that's we had to get the most out of it. We'd be at 8 o'clock in the morning doing vocal takes and stuff.
Would I be right in saying, I just put the dates and times together and stuff from when I first met Lee, and learning about where he's been in the last couple of decades as well? It would have been like emergent time for him as well, right? In terms of who he is now.
Well, he's our age, so yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was actually really young for how respected he was at that point.
Yeah. Oh, so he already held that mana before you guys started.
Well, because he did the first Black Seeds album. Recording stuff yourself was really hard.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, not very long after that, it was really easy.
Yeah.
It just flipped. I mean, I remember one of the first, I think a track from the first record, which I consider like the first kind of good thing I wrote, and the first really good sounding thing we did was a track called This Charming Van.
Yeah.
So we recorded that on a little digital 8-track.
Yeah.
And it was you couldn't see the files. If you wanted to like chop something in it, like this bit of the guitar solo is terrible, you had to kind of like record over it, to punch in and out and things like that. And mixing was just a weird nightmare. But we did that, and Luke had been overseas, and I wrote that song, and he arrived back. He'd been away for like 6 months or something, and the band had kind of broken up. And I was like, I've got this song, and he was like, well, I've got my 8-track, let's record it. We started recording it. It was kind of moody. It was a little bit trippy, It had that kind of thing, because we were all listening to, D'Angelo and Tricky and whatnot. We were listening to all these different things. We weren't just listening to folk music. Then it had the trippy thing, which I think has always run through our music. And so we put that together, and then Conrad showed up at the studio, and we were like, do you want to play some piano on this track that we've just about finished? And he was like, totally. And he played this piano part in like 2 takes, and it was beautiful. And then we were like, this is good. Let's take it to Radioactive. Yeah. And we went and we actually gave it to you.
To me?
I'm pretty sure we gave it to you.
The only story I remember you telling me later on is that you phoned me up on the breakfast show and said, can you talk about the gig? And you were like, the radio talked about that gig.
Oh, you talked about
which
a
gig. I found really endearing.
I thought you played it. Maybe you played it.
Maybe you came up, anyway.
Maybe we gave it, I don't know who we would have, we gave it to someone.
I'm not sure that's quite a John Peel moment on my part, but I did take,
but it was but those little things seemed so important at the time.
Absolutely.
It was so important to get a song.
And if they keep you friggin', if they keep the energy up,
Yeah, because none of us were DJing at Radioactive, and we weren't DJs. We didn't have access to kind of that world of putting music out there.
Yeah.
So we had no idea. Like, we'd play gigs to 50 people or whatever, but we had no idea how to kind of push it to any other kind of place. And like the goals when you're in a band are always so different. Like, we just really wanted to like sell out Barbadega or something and have a song on Radioactive.
Your goals have got to be relative to where you are at the time.
Yeah.
And at the time in Wellington where you were, that's a great goal.
Yeah.
Because not everyone would sell out Bodega,
But then I think there's been times where we've been like playing, like we played a sold out show at the Scala in London, which is maybe like a 1,200 capacity venue or something in King's Cross, beautiful old theatre. Might not be that, maybe it's not that big.
Let's just say it's 1,200 people.
It was big. It felt big.
Yeah.
It felt like a moment. We were getting played on BBC, and we were just worried about whether or not we could come back and do a slightly bigger gig. You know what I mean? We kind of, we enjoyed it in the moment, but still at that point you're still thinking, oh yeah, what do we do? What do we do next? And that's
do you mean come back to New Zealand?
Come back to we're already thinking about how do we get back to England and do an even bigger show in London.
Has that momentum stayed where you can go overseas and play shows like?
Not at that size. We can go to London and we can play like a 500, 600 capacity place and sell it out, and it will be a great show.
Is that still going to be?
We've built a little bit of a fan base, but it's a little fan base.
That's all you need, man.
But it doesn't pay for it. It doesn't pay for us to go over
there.
No.
So
it's a nightmare. We're not going
at this stage with families and stuff. Yeah.
We went over quite a lot. We did a lot of European touring and stuff, and we had like a minor hit in like Germany and Austria and Germany, because we had this song called Bitter Bitter,
like Hasselhoff.
Yeah, so we had this like sort of slight kind of German language kind of crossover thing.
You think that's what did it?
Well, it did. It is exact, because it had a little bit of German in it, which was just because I wrote the song in Berlin a couple of years before that when I was like on my honeymoon. And so I just had put a random bit of German in the song.
Surprised Luke's done no work in Poland.
Oh, I have encouraged him to do a song in Polish, like do one of our tracks just translated into Polish, because it would get played. It would.
I watched this,
but it's I don't know.
I watched this amazing documentary about this Polish con artist who lived in the States recently. What was that? But
not the Polka King.
Yeah,
it wasn't a documentary.
Oh, no, it wasn't a documentary. My God, my world's...
It was Jack Black.
Yeah. The reason I said it was a documentary, give me some credit here, is because
it's amazing. The footage was amazing.
It's because it's based... Give me some credit here. It's based on a real person. That's
it's a true story. Yeah.
I thought he was charming. I thought it was a great film.
I liked it. I told Luke about it, and he said, "Oh, that sounds racist."
Oh, my memories of Luke at high school, man. It's so weird. Like, he really... Because you guys were 3 or 4 years, fourth form and seventh form, there's a big gap there when you're at high school. For some reason, I just remember... I don't know whether he picked me out or whether it was every seventh former, but he was such a cheeky little shit. He'd always... In a fun way. Like, he'd always wind me up. I'm like, who is this guy? Kind of like it felt like a future Jack Black in many ways, the way he used to be. 2015, speaking of something we were on before... When I saw that really dystopian title, "Give Up Your Dreams," I was like, it sounds like it's half. Sounds like you've been asked about this before. That look on your face.
Yeah.
Half like a piss take, but a little bit of seriousness in there. Have you been asked about this title too much, Sam?
No, it's all right. I
Yeah.
mean, it was I'm not going to go and call a song that if I'm not trying to get attention. That's the thing as well. It's
Marketing 101.
It's marketing by like acting like I'm trying to like. It all stems from that European touring kind of period, and Luke would get quite emotional, and I'd try and sort of bottle it up, not worry too much about what was hitting and what wasn't. And James Milne from Lawrence Arabia just kind of like told us we had to just give up on our dreams and enjoy what we were doing at the time.
Which is actually really beautiful advice rather than dystopian, it's all fucked advice.
Yeah. But I think he's less like that now. I think he's more keen to like push on at this point. He's kind of got this new wind, and now he's trying to like, I think he was quite despondent at that point as well, and had kind of reached this point of like.
When you say, Luke was getting quite emotional and stuff, like, is it? Because
he's always been a bit of a driving force in the band in terms of like.
But was it to do with expected numbers at shows and turnouts, or look? I even think and obviously unless you're a stadium band, you're staying on, you're sharing rooms and staying on couches. All that stuff's got to get quite tiring, right?
Oh yeah, that does get tiring.
So
but the thing is,
bad food,
but we wouldn't
bad
do
accommodation.
We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't eat bad food, and we wouldn't stay in bad accommodation.
Oh, okay.
We'd just spend too much money.
Oh, okay, good.
Because at that stage, you're talking about dudes who are like probably early 30s.
Yeah.
Like we wanted to drink the local craft beers and.
So give up
Go
your
to
dreams.
some exciting-
Give up your dreams. Don't give up your luxuries.
Exactly. And we had things coming in. We had some good licenses and stuff. And,
Yeah.
I mean, we've been pretty lucky that we've kind of been able to live the lives we have. Just teetering sort of at the bottom of what people might consider successful. That's where I think we live. And we've, like those European tours, we did do some amazing things.
I disagree with that, man. You guys have had a lot of success.
No, we have. I mean, we've
and even a lot
right.
of coverage around that success, and some quite. It sounds.
We did good when Buffalo came out in England. So the Give Up Your Dreams thing came out of the album after Buffalo that just didn't do as well. We didn't have a song. It was because we didn't have a song on BBC. There was nothing on the album that kind of hit the.
But you
the
did
BBC
beforehand,
thing.
though.
But we did beforehand, so yeah. And I guess, partially that song's actually just saying, just enjoy what's happening right now. That's what I was saying to myself.
Quite a sort of universal. It's almost kind of Buddhist, really, isn't it?
Yeah. But I've had some great responses from people I like really, really respect with that song. Like Tim Finn told me that the lyric connected with him. He said more than any other song he's heard in years, which was like, that was an amazing thing to hear because it's such a band person song. And I was playing support for.
Don't cover your face. Go at the microphone.
I'm just trying to remember his name. What's the name? Hang on, can I Google something?
That's right. I forgot Hilary Barry's name, and that was pretty important in the New Zealand media zeitgeist. I'm just going to chat and fill the gap while you use our modern technology to.
Do you edit?
Find, no, I leave the stuff in. Once I had to go to the bathroom, I edited that out. That was awkward.
Okay, no, so I was playing support for Lou Barlow, who obviously is like my
Thibodeau.
favourite person in the whole world.
Yeah.
Even though I just forgot his name. No, Lou. So yeah, I loved Thibodeau back in the day, and I loved Dinosaur Jr. and all that shit. So. And Folk Implosion, that was him, Folk Implosion, that was like his kind of weird big...
Oh my god, Folk Implosion, that's right.
Yeah, that was his
big
like
active band
hit.
back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, that was like his hit.
Yeah.
So he was touring solo, and I was playing support from solo, and I got off stage, and he doesn't have a phone. He doesn't have a cell phone.
Yeah, I like those guys.
Yeah, so he was backstage.
It's like, fuck you, but I kind of respect you as well.
He was backstage with no one else backstage.
Yeah.
Just sitting there, and I got off stage, and he was like, "Oh, really great show, man." I was like, "Oh, thank you, Lou Barlow." And he's like, "No, like."
Did you say thank you, Lou Barlow?
Nah, I didn't. I wish I had.
Thank you, Han
Thank
Solo.
you, Lou Barlow. Help me, Obi-Wan. So I said, "Help me, Lou Barlow. I'm so insecure." And he said, And he was like, no. I mean, I say that to everyone, but actually, I just listened to all of your songs and I really like your lyrics. And I thought this song was good, and I thought that song was good, and I thought that song, Give Up Your Dreams, and sort of said things about the song. So he was sitting there, he had nothing else to do but listen to my gig. And, you know, when you play support for people you like, they generally do not pay the slightest bit of attention to you, and you feel a bit bummed out. Like, that's the general rule, is you'll feel a bit bummed out at the end of the show.
Yeah.
But,
So I noticed
he was great. And he said the Give Up Your Dream song, he connected with it so much because there's been many times in his life where he's been, because it's got, you know, these lyrics about being in a van with the bandmates and just bumming each other out and this sort of stuff. And he's like, I totally got it.
So it's really different to that Shapeshifter video when they're in the van and they're all like, yeah.
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 Hey, but those guys have, you know, they've had some pretty
they're
times.
amazing.
No, I'm saying they've had some bad times.
It goes with any...
So they're not telling the truth, you know.
Is that a thing with playing shows now where you notice people fucking about on their phones and it's annoying? You don't really notice it. I suppose you play...
I haven't really noticed it. I mean, we haven't done our own tour in quite a while.
Yeah.
So we're generally playing music festivals, which, you know, you've got the advantage of just being in a really, really big PA.
Well, that's where the phone is kind of perfunctory now, and that it's replaced the lighter when you tell people to hold it up, hasn't it?
Oh, I mean, Ed Sheeran the other night, he got everyone to hold up their phones.
Okay, Ed Sheeran. That was an excellent review because I obviously do a bit of music writing myself, and when I started reading it, as I was reading it, I was like, you know, how do you sort of say I wasn't really into this, but provide some sort of positive aspects and, you know, kind of... I thought what you did was quite artful.
I tried to be really nice, and you know what, there's so many grumpy comments on, especially the spin-off reposted
I just want to read the last sentence, because I actually laughed out loud at a couple of other sentences, but I quickly looked through it today. I can honestly say I went to the show thinking I would be wowed, but I wasn't. Nothing was worth a wow. It was all just utterly, horribly fine.
That's totally true.
Yeah.
It's totally true. It was crushingly, suffocatingly acceptable the whole time.
That sounds like a lot of modern mainstream pop culture, man.
I don't know. I think there's some crazy weird shit in pop at the moment. And I think Ed Sheeran is not it. I mean, if you listen to like some of the recent Taylor Swift stuff, like there's some pretty weird shit going on in there. She's definitely like going, you know, she's looking at Beyonce and she's looking at Lorde and trying to find some of that kind of weird edge, which isn't natural for her. She's naturally quite boring, I think. But she's trying.
See, that would be a great line in an article too.
Right. But I think she's also quite good when she's boring. I think she's quite a talented songwriter. I don't think Ed Sheeran's a talented songwriter.
Yeah.
He's connected with people by basically stealing other people's ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, his Lord of the Rings song is just Feeling Good by Nina Simone, and which then he combined the two at the gig. And I didn't go into it in the article, but he's just...
Oh my God, so you'd already spotted what it was, and then he actually used the tune that you...
Oh, well, I think maybe it's out there. I think it's out there that's one of his things that he's kind of stolen. Maybe he even just paid money for that.
So, well, look, with the article, as I say, I thought, you know, it's a topic, you know, based on ticket sales to the gig. You know, there's essentially a large group of middle New Zealand with pitchforks after you write something. I thought you handled it really well. Like, have you had any kind of, what was the word, spit back from it or anything, or it's just another piece of... I think these days there's so much media people...
There's a lot of comments. Like, someone told me, you got it, because the spin-off contacted me asking if they could repost it. They've got some content sharing thing.
Yeah, I thought I originally saw it on Radio New Zealand, and then I found it on the spin-off. Yeah.
So I don't know what their deal is, but they can repost Radio New Zealand things. And I was kind of a little bit wary, but just because there just can be some stuff around that website that's just so, like, culture of the outraged.
That's very interesting observation, Sam. You've pinned my problem with it. There's some articles I feel that are not... They're written without a nuanced discussion.
Yeah.
You sort of see what I'm saying?
Some of what they're saying is fantastic.
No. A lot of the website really is. But yeah, there are articles I go, there's a lot more of a nuanced conversation to be had about this rather than that's terrible, you shouldn't be doing that, this is that,
The one that just just really just made me just slap myself in the face the other day was on their Instagram feed. They had a poll which was, is it offensive that the All Blacks are using the word battle in their advertising for their games against France because some All Blacks died in the Battle of Passchendaele? And so many people had answered the poll yes, like it was like the consensus was yes, that is offensive. And I just thought, that's actually fucking pathetic. That is a word that people use for sport all the time, and everyone knows the context. And like,
it's also a really weird, tenuous link.
It's a tenuous link. Maybe there was some kind of battle imagery on the poster that I didn't kind of get or something, but I didn't pay too much attention because I just thought this is not important. There is so much to be outraged about in the world that is really important, and this is not it.
Back to Ed. So did you get any?
I shouldn't start complaining about Spinoff because I actually quite
no. You and I have expressed similar. I mean, look, an organisation that's got
if they want me to do a podcast for them, I'm totally up for it. And I don't mean anything that I just said.
If that happens, and I'm still here, no. So with the Ed Sheeran thing, you didn't get any sort of like, morning radio shock jocks going, hey, Sam, can you give us a comment on Ed? Do you want to talk about Ed or anything? It's just sort of gone out the other
side. No one cares about me.
Things happen and they disappear these days, Think about the last huge outrage and uproar on Facebook, and then you go through a sleep cycle, you have some cornies, and it's gone.
Yeah.
Doing stuff on Radio New Zealand, man. I've really enjoyed your features, the sort of travels through different genres of music.
Thanks. I mean, I haven't done that many. I'm definitely I'd still consider myself 100% a novice for radio.
But you. How does it work? You do the whole thing. You come up with the idea, you write it, you go out and record it, and then someone else engineers it for you at RNZ, or
the last one I did, I actually engineered it all. I mixed it all because the mixer had to go, so I mixed it and out.
The mixer had to go?
He had to leave the studio. So
sorry, yeah, I thought you meant the machinery.
No, the engineer had to leave. So actually, I didn't know what I was doing, but I just sort of did it. It was fine. Because they use quite funny software there. I mean, what
do they use? So they don't use Pro Tools. They're not using
I can't remember
a demo copy of Cool Edit like Radioactive. When I made the ads at Radioactive, there was a demo version of Cool Edit that went for 28 seconds. So it was always a real art to do a 30-second ad.
Wow, yeah,
yeah. So do you pitch them ideas or like?
I have pitched. When I had nothing going on soundtrack wise. I was trying to come up with ideas all the time, and it was. They've been really great. I tell you that there's some people there, in the Wellington team and the music team there. Kirsten Johnstone and Melody, Emma when she was there, Melody Thomas and Yadna Saw, and they're actually all way better at that stuff than me. And so I go in and be quite kind of irreverent, I guess, with my style of what I'm doing, and kind of mess things up and do everything a bit wrong. And it comes out all right because they're all there to kind of make it better, basically. But what you're doing with the students. So essentially I'm producing it myself, but there's a team of just really awesome women who've made hundreds of them who do 5 a week.
Dana is, I've decided, an exceptionally talented broadcaster. I think her radio man is great. Her kind of inquisitive style is great. Things she puts together are great,
yeah, she seems pretty comfortable with it now.
Yeah, she's just great on radio.
Yeah, I'm much more comfortable on live radio than pre-recorded stuff, for sure. I prefer the kind of this kind of thing, back and forth.
Yeah. I'm the same. I didn't realise that until after years of doing brekkie and radio shows and stuff. Actually, being faced with the pre-record, or the other thing for me is this suits me better because I've thought about doing a podcast of similar to a radio feature that you do. So a podcast is actually a pre-recorded story, a documentary, if you will. And the times I've tried reading off scripts, I just don't sound as good recorded as I do when I'm chatting. But I guess that's a practice thing. I've never been to radio school, and my students, they have someone come in and teach them how to, accentuate what do you call them, like proper nouns, that news reading style, all that stuff I kind of don't know. That seat gets a little bit much.
Yeah, I'm just starting to get really uncomfortable. I might just stand up. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. Stand
Sorry,
up.
it was in the middle
Give
of
up your seat.
rant, and I wasn't trying to.
It's getting quite
trying
warm
to
in
be
here
active
too,
stuff.
but I have to shut everything down to keep the soundproofing it. The temperature's okay. Making me
fine.
feel self-conscious now.
It's always hot at the
all-
moment.
Yeah,
Anywhere.
yeah. So it feels like you and Luke are the sort of the long-term stalwart partners in the band.
Yeah, Conrad as well has been there since the beginning, but he's sort of less. He doesn't like to be quite as visual.
Yeah.
Doesn't like to
You
be
and
out
Luke
the
are the
front.
sort of, this sort of, yeah, that's right.
The
sort
face of the band.
Let's say the Lennon McCartney, but so describe that relationship, man. Like not just the band and stuff. Like what? How does you and Luke work, man?
Well, he's a pretty crazy guy. Like
He's a pretty crazy
pretty
guy.
crazy guy. But I mean that in that kind of light sense. Like he's just he's got a totally different energy because he grew up in a
War-torn.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it would have quite been war-torn when he was growing up.
Oh, sorry, that's right. He wasn't born in 19...
But I mean, like, war-affected, still definitely.
Yeah. Well,
Like, it wasn't-
old school Eastern Europe.
Yeah, like Poland in the 80s wasn't Western Germany in the 80s. It wasn't. It wasn't rebuilt. It would have been pretty intense. So they have he just has a different style of certain things. But, he's also like just a complete middle-class New Zealander who knows about every interesting art film and every food fad and everything else. It's not like he's some kind of Polish immigrant. But, he's got a song...
It's not some kind of Sacha Cohen character, everyone.
No, absolutely not. But, there is that different thing there whereas I grew up in, Wadestown, which is like a very posh, boring, horrible suburb in Wellington. So,
So when he
there's
came
differences there in that regard. But I think we just managed to sort of stay friends through whatever is going on.
So when he came to Welly High, was he not far fresh off the boat from Poland? I thought he went to primary school here and stuff as well.
No, I think he arrived when he was like 8.
Wow. Still,
So-
that's long enough that you have very much formed memories from the mother country as well.
Oh, yeah, and he still had an accent, I'd say, in sort of 3rd, 4th, 5th form, and then it kind of drifted away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what's been the secret? Like, I was thinking, like, not obviously there's been some lineup changes and stuff, but both with you and Luke and Conrad, and then the wider band in general. How the fuck? How does a creative unit through your highs and lows and so on stay together for all that time?
Well, we share...
Because high school. You just talked about how long ago it was, about an hour ago.
Yeah.
You are still in that core unit now. You know?
Because we don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
Although we do make music together all the time because we're doing other stuff together. I don't know. We just don't put that much pressure on each other, I think. And no one's ever like the main person.
Yeah.
And we share everything money-wise.
Yeah.
So...
That Fat Freddy's bro mentality of it all gets shared equal ways.
Yeah, I mean... I don't know if Fat Freddy's do that, actually.
Oh, I
don't
thought
know.
they did. Maybe they stopped doing that.
No, maybe they do. I don't know.
This is 2002 Intel.
Yeah, no, they probably do. It's probably with the original members, I'm sure they do. But I mean, I've got no idea. I shouldn't cuss.
Hey, anyway, so back to the Felix Foundation.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about the spin-off or Fat Freddy's drop, okay?
Yeah. I don't know how they do their accounting, but no, we keep it all like very, very even.
Yeah. I hear exactly.
And we've had good management, So we're managed by a guy called Craig Pearce, who used to be my stepbrother.
Well, he probably still is your stepbrother. Oh no,
no, he's not.
Oh, okay.
Well, he used to be my de facto stepbrother, or whatever you call it.
Okay.
We met each other when we were like 13, and our parents were dating, and they were like, they were like, you got to come have brunch with Craig. You got to meet Craig, and we were both wearing like tartan Massimo caps and like tartan shorts, and
Holy
I think
shit.
maybe I had a Red Hot Chili Peppers t-shirt on, and he had like a Metallica t-shirt or something, and so it was like
a Bill and Ted's moment.
I was like, all right, dude,
yeah,
this is gonna be sweet ass.
It sucks and it cuts. Anyway,
so we used to be managed by Matthew McLeod, who still manages the Black Seeds with Craig, but he took on Craig as like an assistant basically years and years ago. and Craig turned out to be pretty awesome in the managerial kind of zone. And then at some point, Matt wanted to go off and do some other things and had to drop his workload, so he kind of moved out of our management team.
Yeah.
But Matt was very pivotal in us getting out of the New Zealand zone.
Yeah, right.
Was
No mean feat.
Yeah, he really took it on himself for us and the Black Seeds. He moved to London pretty much to get the Black Seeds and the Phoenix Foundation record deals and better tours going on and things like that.
And so he's back here now as well?
He's back here now as well, yeah. He's still managing the Black Seeds, still great friends with him and stuff, so that was all. It was all like a very kind of, it wasn't like we had a breakup with him as a manager. He sort of had to kind of change his priorities.
So going from the band starting and then years passing and so on, you end up, supporting Split Enz. That's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, that was cool.
Was that like a sort of get off the phone call and like wow, okay, we're supporting Split Enz?
It was like that, but we'd already done. I think maybe it was more. We'd already supported Tim and Neil
right
on a tour, which
not
was,
Crowded House, but some.
No, it was it was like that sort of Everyone Is Here album.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's been a few things like that where it's like you realise you're not shit because someone you think is really awesome is like, hey, come and do this thing with me.
And
like
and kind of New Zealand music royalty, dude. Yeah.
Well, a really exciting one for me was David Kilgore from The Clean got me to come and play some guitar for him, playing a couple of support shows for Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Yeah.
So I did like a little mini tour with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds playing guitar for David Kilgore, who's like my favourite guitarist in the whole world, and like I just love The Clean so much. So that was insane.
Yeah.
And then Tim and Neil have kind of shown the love a bunch of times, and Dave Dobbin and.
So the Split Enz shows, like for people who maybe Split Enz would have a following that are people that maybe like Split Enz and X amount of other bands. Perhaps not as wide a berth. How were you received by the people sort of going back for that? Relive the 1970s and 80s.
They went great, those shows. I think people thought I was Liam.
Young man with a beard.
Yeah.
What makes you say that with that?
Because that's what I heard. I don't think we actually look anything like each other, but we do. We have brown hair and big beards.
And it's a big arena.
Yeah, so we did some big arena shows on that tour. I think we did like 2 nights at Vector Arena. That was pretty crazy for us,
Just to experience that, man, like on that stage looking at all those people, that's nuts.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think we've played there a few times since, but yeah.
Dobbin asking you to produce the album, was it you and Luke? Or it was both of you, right? So, what does that entail? Because production can mean different things, especially these days. So what did you got? What did you?
I think we almost did everything that people would consider production.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean. Like we
made some
sat
fat
down
beats.
We made fat beats. We sat down with him and the acoustic guitar and half finished songs and threw lyric ideas around and that sort of thing. It's amazing though with someone like Dave Dobbin because he'd sort of he'd be like, oh, I've got this. I need you to help me write this song. I've got this kind of bit, and he'd play you a bit, and it's like, that's pretty good. So I've got this other bit, and it's like, well, that sounds like a chorus. And then you sort of go, well, that's kind of already, that's pretty good already, isn't it? And he's like, oh, maybe.
But yeah, go on. Yeah.
And then if you throw him some ideas, he did take some of our ideas, but also, he's a genius. So you throw him an idea, and he goes, that's great. That's a great idea. What about this though instead? And it's like a better idea. And you go, well, of course, you've just
but without you putting those steps in because I thought about that as well. Like sort of side thing you're getting at. I think that maybe is like it must have been hard to begin with to go. Fuck, we're giving creative direction to Dave Dobbin. Like, was it sort of difficult at first to go?
Yeah, it was difficult for about an hour. And then I said, I don't know what to say to you about this lyric, Dave. Essentially, I think you could write a better lyric. And he went, do you think it's been a bit too long in the back of the fridge? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it's getting a bit cheesy in there. And I was like,
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I think it's cheesy. And he was like, Don't worry about that, mate. You think it's cheesy, you just tell me it's cheesy and I'll change it. So I was like, all right. He doesn't want me to like sugarcoat it. He just wants me to go, when you say that line, when you say the moon is in the sky and it fills my heart with love. Not that was one of his lyrics, but if you say something just that it's like, that's like a terrible cliched lyric. Yeah. Because everyone puts those things in. Those sort of stopgaps where you're just like, I'll just say something that sounds like a lyric.
Yeah.
Then that's, you just need to be pushed to kind of throw that away and put something else in there. And he was never put out.
Have you guys had someone to do that for you, or is that Lee in the engineering role? I've never really thought about that.
Lee has done it a lot.
Because I've heard Lee talking about taking on that production role as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. He's done it for sure.
But you've never had a producer per se come in and self-produced.
Not a songwriting producer, but the thing that we've got is that me and Luke do it to each other. So
that's like his Dobbins solo. So it's sort of
and we've done it to each other. We've been critical of each other's work, and Conrad as well. Not so much with the lyrics, but he'll kind of he'll be like, this is a bit boring, and to just make it better. Yeah. And so whenever anyone in the band tells you that something's a bit shit, you get fucked off and you react badly, and then you go away and you do what they say.
Yeah,
like that's the natural process. Every single time.
Sounds like part of the keeping it together for 20 years that I asked before as well. You go and you have a little tanty, and then you...
Why would they...
Why would they... It's genius!
Yeah.
And the other sort of topic we haven't touched on yet that I asked about was composing, man, because you've done a lot of kind of, I guess, screen work, we'll vaguely call it, or holistically call it, and Eagle vs. Shark is the kind of one of the main projects I know.
The launching off point for us, I guess.
Yeah. How do you, like, scoring and composing, you're not having to write sheet music, are you? Do you write music? I just wonder whether that's a lost art these days,
Well, I mean, it is for sure. If we were going to do something with orchestra, we would take what we've done with MIDI files and we would...
get someone else to score it.
We would get someone else to score it. Yeah. I mean, there's people around who are just immensely talented at writing for orchestras, and
when I looked into how many full-time Foley artists there are in New Zealand, of which there are 2, how many people make a full-time living scoring in New Zealand?
Well, they'd all have various roles. So we're working with a whole bunch of composers for our NZSO shows later in the year, and we're working with... So there are people who are kind of reimagining our songs for orchestra, so essentially they're scoring because the music's composed, but they'll go, well, this bit can, I mean, it is actually composition when it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
So composition, someone like Victoria Kelly, who now is working for APRA. She's an amazing composer, but also just really renowned as being someone you can get in on your... she does a lot of stuff with Neil Finn, and she did the album that I sort of did a tiny bit of work on with Neil recently, and she is incredible. Like, she's someone who just, I don't know, what she can see that you can get out of the orchestra to add to a song. It isn't just notes and melodies. It's kind of a dynamic texture thing that is so complicated.
Yeah. So with you guys with Eagle versus Shark, is it like you talk with Taika early on about feel and so on, or do you wait all the way until there's like a rough print of the film?
You wait until you get you probably go and watch like an assembly.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, if you're working closely with the director, you'll go and watch like one of the first edits.
Yeah.
Which are generally like 2 hours.
So it's quite fun.
2 or 3 hours
so
long.
It's all the way after shooting and first cut in the edit room.
Yeah. I think Boy, we were on it pretty early.
Yeah.
He sent me Boy and was like, I'm going to go and film this film. Here's the script. Start thinking about it.
Cool.
And I read that script and was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be like a big film. You could just tell from the script.
It's our childhood on film in a lot of ways, I mean, in terms of that era of New Zealand, yeah.
Really just super focused and stuff. The next one, Hunt for the Wilder People, was a bit more random. He sent me a text. I wasn't sure because he'd become so big by that stage.
So big.
It's like he can work with whoever he wants.
By that stage, what about now, man?
But no, now he
It's
literally.
ridiculous.
Thor, it was like, he worked with Mark Mothersbaugh, who was like
Yeah.
basically the person he's been getting us to imitate for film after film.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Like those.
I hear you.
Those Royal Tenenbaums kind of movies and stuff. There's definitely an element of that in what he does. But he's obviously got his own voice
And
as
then,
well.
and then last question around that is like, how involved does he like to get with the music? Is it like back and forth, or he's just like, yep, that fits? Or
It depends on how busy he is. I think. But he will always have very, very clear, focused ideas right at the last minute. That's kind of Taika's approach. You'll sort of be waiting to kind of know what he thinks, and then he'll be like, "That's good, but this bit here needs to be exactly like this." But it'll always be like just right at the last minute.
Well, I'd imagine directing would be like you've got so much coming at you, and just at those moments where you have clarity in each of those departments, you go, and then you go to the next thing.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like he's withheld information. It's like he hasn't actually been able to see that moment yet or something.
We're nearly there. How long do you think we've been going?
An hour and 10 minutes.
I suppose when I said we're nearly there, it kind of gave it away. An hour and 17. I kind of need to go to the bathroom. I was going to run another thing by you, but...
Run the last thing by me.
Okay.
Look, this has been a good chat, but if you're not going to edit it, people don't need to listen to this much rambling of me. I mean, you can, use your dulcet tones to soothe them to sleep at night.
I don't understand what you meant with any of that. I was going to say, what comes... This is like a sort of a bad journalism question, but hey,
okay, great.
Desert Island Disc styles. Because I just thought such a long career and, such a long life. What comes to mind immediately, band life and world-wise with each of these? 2003's Horsepower.
Oh, learning, I guess, just learning how to do it.
2005 and Pegasus.
Bit more tension, but also better.
Yeah. Is that world, or that's just band and life?
That was the band itself. I guess, I don't know. It's hard to think of, when you name something that I've worked on, it's hard for me to think about the wider
life,
context, because I can't remember what we were listening to.
I think YouTube became popular in 2007. 2007, Happy Ending?
Yeah, Happy Ending. Well, that was, I don't know, it felt like a bit of a sort of a mainstream thing going on for us there, and we were touring America and stuff around that time, and
we didn't even talk about Bunnies on Ponies. 2010, Buffalo.
Well, that was just kind of like knowing how to do it. I reckon at that point, it's like I think that's probably, that will go down as like our best album. Some people say Pegasus is our best record, but I think it's probably Buffalo. It's definitely the most successful.
Yeah.
By many, many, many times.
Songs and something I wanted to touch on that I didn't, but I just want to say, song, EP, and album-wise, you guys have the best titles. 2013's Fandango.
Yeah, Fandango. I really like Fandango. It's a double album.
Yeah.
It kind of went. It sort of missed the mark, maybe, in terms of the cultural zeitgeist, but I still think it's pretty good. I think it's got some great tracks on there. It's got some real stretched out moments, some real trippy shit. Good album art.
Probably guessed the last one. 2015's Give Up Your Dreams.
Yeah, well, that was fun. It was a fun record. I don't know. We were all together in a room. We had time. This is the last record we made in our studio, the Car Club, which we had for a really long time, which we no longer have. It's been bowled over to put in a septic tank for the toilets at the hockey stadium. Isn't that great? It's just like a little fucking shit house sitting there.
Wow, that's progress.
That was great, that record. That record, I put my back out on the first day of recording.
Yeah.
And I'd had terrible back problems before, and I was determined just to not let it get to me.
Yeah.
And so I just went and got heaps of drugs, and I was just high as a kite.
I think I heard you say to Anika Moa they were better than anything you'd got from a dealer. You know now why half of America's like on prescription heroin, right?
That's crazy. That shit is good. I mean, some people it doesn't get them high, but definitely it gets me high, those drugs. But I mean, so that record, I was out of it, and I also was just like, fuck it. I don't care that I've got a sore back. I'm just going to have a great time making this record, and it was really fun to make. It's not necessarily my favourite record. It's probably my least favourite record, but it's also probably
controversial.
Well, it's kind of our best sounding record.
Yeah.
And it's got some great tracks on there, and it's got an amazing energy. But yeah, for some reason, I don't know. It doesn't move my soul. Maybe.
And when's the next album?
Next album is half done. It's really good.
Really?
Really excited about Luke's songs on it. Lyrically, he's just gone to another level, and yeah, I think my songs are okay too. So
okay. Well, my back teeth are now floating, so it's been a pleasure.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
I hope that I didn't say anything too offensive in today's climate.